Welcome, Power fans. We have finally arrived at season three of Power Book Two. It's been a long time in the making to get to this point, so let's get right into it. Of course, if you enjoy Power content, we will be doing reviews of every single episode throughout the season, so feel free to like and subscribe. So let's get to title number one of this episode to kick off season three: Your Perception, Your Reality. And I think that it pretty much centers on Tariq and his journey. Just looking at this episode, I feel like this entire season is going to revolve around his journey to try and prevent going down the same road that his father did. But all of his actions are going to lead to exactly what he's been trying to fight against. I can pretty much already see it now. From the beginning of the episode, we see that he's already a pariah on campus based on what happened with Zeke's murder. Nobody wants him at Weston. He's been kicked out of the dorm rooms. The parents hate him. No one wants him around. On top of that, the one person he can rely on, Effie, she's actually now at Stansfield and she wants to get more involved with him. She wants to learn what makes him tick. She wants to be his right hand man. And he's trying to keep her a little bit at bay. He doesn't really want her in the business, doesn't really want her moving weight, which is kind of ironic because she's the perfect person for that. She has the background for that and everything. But he's so afraid and he's so guilt ridden about what happened to Lauren that he doesn't want her to get that close. He wants that to be the one relationship that he kind of does right for a change. But that's causing conflict because Effie, she's very strong, very independent. She's been on her own for so long. She doesn't just want to be the eye candy or the person on his arm or the person just giving him support. She does want to be her own woman as well. So I can already see the seeds are starting to kind of crack a little bit. He's starting out just hiding little things from her. And that's what you can see it on her face. And when things like that happen, that's when the seeds of doubt start. And we already know that Kane is working on Effie. He wants her to himself. I don't know if it's a romantic thing yet, but he knows how reliable that she can be. And she knows that she can be the balance if she's on his team as far as moving weight and everything. But that's going to be a source of conflict. I can see at some point uh, Tariq having to take out Kane or they have some type of fight over Effie. So keep an eye on that scenario there. Let's go to Monet really quick. We see her early in the episode. I mean, she's obviously mourning. And what I liked about this is that when we look at grief, particularly on movies and everything, we kind of see the grand aspect of it, the person just crying and wailing and everything. But this kind of shows you the small moments of grief, when you're just sitting around watching TV, but she's getting no enjoyment out of it. She says, I'm watching my shows, but she's completely depressed and out of it. She has no one to rely on, no safe space. She pretty much pushes her entire family away. Her sons. She's completely angry at Diana for revealing that Zeke was her son. So she wants nothing to do with Diana. And the one person that she should be relying on, Lorenzo, she has complete hatred for him. She has like no more respect for him. I think because, as the man in the family, she looked at him to protect everyone. And she looks at that as a failure, number one, on his part, that he didn't protect the family. And number two, he hasn't found out who actually did this to their family, which of course was him by accident. So that's a whole nother conflict. So, but she talked to him with so much disrespect, which we never saw before. She just dresses him down at any given moment, even to people outside the family. When Davis shows up, she completely just curses Lorenzo out in front of him, and Davis took note of that. So that's going to be a big issue there because if the family is divided at the top, I can see Lorenzo looking elsewhere for any type of companionship. So that can be an issue. And also on Monet's end too, we have to keep an eye on that if anybody shows up and catches her eye. But for now, the only person that she has any type of love for is really Tariq. Because after he gave the speech at Weston trying to defend Zeke's name, and also that he's pushing to try and find out who the killer is, she feels she can completely trust him. So that's an ace that Tariq has in the hole. He obviously doesn't know who killed Zeke yet, but if someone is really on his heels, he can pull that card and tell Monet this person is the one that got Zeke just to get that adversary off with him. So it wouldn't surprise me if down the line he says maybe Noma is the one that was behind Zeke getting killed. Speaking of Noma, let's get right to her. Every single season we kind of have a big bad villain, right? So last season was Mecca. Mecca was okay. He really didn't do it for me too much. Noma is completely different. She's the head of a cartel. She moves like an international cartel. She has an army behind her. She has the money. So she has all those things in place. And she has an axe to grind because somebody touched her lieutenant, which was also her fiance in Mecca. So when she comes on the scene, she comes almost like an assassin, with her team and everything. She has a right-hand man in Obi. Obi's kind of funny because he has complete disdain for anything American. So I feel that's going to be his downfall at some point. But he's kind of, I take him serious, but he's a little comic relief in the fact that anytime an American opens their mouth, he has something to say. So he's pretty funny. But Noma, I like her because she's very ruthless. And even though she emotionally is obviously hurt, she keeps her emotions at bay. The fact that that ring had gotten stolen from her, that's an emotional attachment. So she killed that couple, but she did it very efficiently. And then when she got into Mecca's apartment without them knowing, she pretty much disarmed Kane and everyone in there quickly, and then killed Rocky as well, R.I.P. Rocky. So she has no problem doing what needs to be done. So she's a big adversary. It's going to be very difficult to outsmart her. We've seen this before, in the earlier Power series in book one. So we know at some point she's going to have some type of weakness. We just need to figure out what that is. Right now I think it's really just her ego. We saw how quickly that Braden, Kane, and Tariq were able to. It was kind of over the top, but how quickly they were coming with the one-liners. We can work for you. We can, keep the police at bay. You can trust us. And I can see that was playing on her ego a little bit because she said, "Oh, they're like eager puppies. Let me see if they can satisfy me." So we've seen a little bit of that too. And she had all that weight that needs to be moved. But I think really what I want to see is her interaction with Lorenzo. Because what I mentioned before, now that he is getting nothing at home from Monet, I can see him being really enamored by a woman like Noma. So it wouldn't surprise me if something popped off between those two. And I can see her going for someone like I'm not trying to say all light-skinned guys look alike, but to me, Lorenzo, pretty similar to Mecca. So I can see her going for him. Now with Noma and Monet, they're kind of opposites at this point. Noma keeps her emotions in check. Monet's emotions have always been all over the place. So they're kind of different sides of the same coin. Noma is kind of like what would happen if Monet got her act together. She could have maybe, well, not internationally been that big, but maybe on stateside been someone like Noma. So I feel like them clashing would be very interesting to see. Obviously, Noma has the upper hand at this point, and she can completely destroy the Tejadas, but we'll see where it goes. Remember also that Kane and his brother, when they were talking, he mentioned that Kane's brother mentioned that I can get dad to come around. So there's going to be some type of interaction with Lorenzo and Noma at some point. Keep an eye on that. I see them falling for each other and making things a little bit more messy, as we know Power likes to do. Let's talk with Braden. Where is he going now? So now he's not out of the business, obviously, but now he's getting pushed more towards the legal side with Weston Holdings. So now he's getting to see how the legal game works. His uncle Lucas has no problems to me bending the law. He mentioned how much he liked course correcting the idea. So look for maybe his uncle to get pulled into this web that Kane and Tariq are trying to do with Noma. I see them as the perfect combination there. Also, Braden is looking, he might have someone else in his corner in Kiki. You don't want to judge people by their names, but Kiki already seems like she might be down for moving on the other side of the law eventually. She's kind of straight and narrow so far, but I see something developing with her and Braden and her getting pulled into the business that also is going to make her expendable. We know with Power, bodies have to drop every season. There's at least about 5 or 6 characters that normally have to die. So I put her on the list as one of the ones that would be expendable if she gets into a relationship with Braden. Talking about who else is expendable, Who is this dude that sat next to Diana at the Zeke Memorial? I'm like, who is this uncle? Whose uncle is this coming around trying to act like a college student? But that does give her a love interest. So that's someone else that I look at as expendable, somebody that's not in the business, somebody that's pure and a regular person that that's going to love Diana for her, calling her queen and everything. That means he's going to get killed at some point. So I'm looking for him to be canon fodder for Kane or someone else in the series. So keep an eye on that. Also, being that Diana is back at Stansfield because of or transferring to Stansfield for the first time because of Dante's promise to her. We also have to look for her to get involved in the other side of the law too, because he did mention that it's expensive sending her there, and also at the same time, she's going to have to quote unquote hustle for the remaining amount of the money. So you know what that means. She's going to get involved somehow, some way with Tariq and them, and that's going to pose problems with Effie because especially if he gets closer to Diana, Effie's not having that. So keep an eye on what Diana's going to end up doing at Stansfield. Also, something to keep in mind, I was glad to see Tate. I'm really still bummed by the fact that they're not doing the Power book five, The Influence, which is supposed to be focused on Tate. I feel that was one area that Power could have really tried to do something different in tackling the political side, especially when you have an actor like Lorenz Tate. You know, he would kill something like that. But if this is the most that we can get, then fine. Tate told Tariq something that was very important. He said you need to change the narrative on campus about you. And that is very similar to what we saw Ghost doing in the remaining seasons of Power, really trying to change his image, really trying to become a philanthropist, really trying to be a political figure. So I think we're going to start seeing Tariq transfer into that realm based on Tate, because remember, Tate also said, I might need to use you in my political campaign. So that was going to be a perfect introduction for Tariq to say, you know, the sins of my father, I'm going to rectify that. I'm going to do this for the community, yada, 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 yada. That's the perfect way for Tariq to transition into that, especially with somebody like Tate who knows how to play the game. However, there is a caveat. This new professor, Professor Bennett, she seems to be on the straight and narrow. She seems to be all about her people. And the relationship that she had with Tate back in the day, it seems like she was the idealist that would have kept Tate's heart pure if they would have stayed together. So I think her coming back around, that's going to pull Tate a little bit more to the good side, so to speak, to have him not be as double dealing and as two-faced as we're used to him being. So keep an eye on that relationship between Professor Bennett and Tate. That's going to be very, very interesting. Now, talking about bodies being dropped, you know, it wouldn't be an opening episode without somebody getting killed. So the one that fell was somebody that I was looking forward to getting got, and that was Bash. Bash was coming back around, trying to extort Braden and also trying to extort Tariq over course correct, and all that falling apart and all of his money being damaged. But he stepped a little bit too far, and this goes to show that Tariq is pretty much turning into ghost. He doesn't like anybody having anything over him. And when they had that meeting, Bash was pushing a little bit too far about how I can ruin you, how you're under me, and he got gutted for it. Didn't have any problems with that. I was happy to see. I thought something like that wouldn't happen until maybe mid-season or the end of the season. So I'm glad that we didn't have him kind of hovering around in the background, being slimy, showing up, trying to extort everyone. So I'm glad he's out of here. So we don't have to worry about him. But as always, when bodies drop, you have to focus on how is that going to come back around? Where's the body going to show up? So we probably haven't seen the last of Bash at some point. That body is going to get tied to them some type of way, especially now that we know Jenny and Blanca have teamed up to try and get a Rico on Tariq, Davis, and the Tejadas. So that is something to keep in mind. Jenny and Blanca, I see this kind of blowing up in their face because already Jenny's being a little bit too forceful and over the top with Sax. And we know one thing about Sax, he's a survivor. He's made it through every single season. And as much as he likes Jenny, I think he's already starting to see that, you know, she's getting on my nerves a little bit too much. As much as I like her and all that, this isn't really worth it. So at some point, I see him screwing her over. He's going to give her evidence that she needs for, I think, pushing up until the Rico and even the charge going through. But at some point, he's going to pull the rug out from under her, and this is going to blow up in her face, probably at the season finale. So something to keep in mind with Jenny, Blanca, and also Sax. Speaking of that, let's talk about Davis really quick. He fenced that blue diamond ring and got it back on the market. So at some point, he's going to run afoul with Noma. But the thing about Davis, he's a very quick talker and he's in the legal field. So I think that's going to be enough to save his skin when she eventually comes for him because he's a big, big asset. He already has a track record of getting clients off, high profile clients off. So I think that's going to be able to spare him with Noma eventually when they encounter each other. But Davis has to play his cards right because as of now, Tariq is able to hold that over his head. So we'll see where that goes. So to close up, the big, big thing about this episode was the reveal that Lauren is still alive and under Jenny's supervision. How long is that going to last? Is Lauren going to possibly jump ship? I think at some point the reveal is going to be that Jenny is going to somehow have it slip to Sax that Lauren is out there, and then at some point he's going to be able to get in contact with her and then get her out of there some type of way. But I think we all knew Lauren was alive. When the body has not been shown, the person's still alive. So, what influence is Lauren going to have on this season? I don't know yet. But I know that Tariq has a lot of guilt about her. So, knowing that she's still alive, that's going to have big ramifications for this season. But I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know who you're rooting for so far. Is it still Tariq? Is it Lauren? Do you want Effie to make the come up and be the head contact for Noma? That's something to keep in mind too. Effie and Noma haven't met yet, so we'll see how that goes down. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, and we'll be back next Friday with episode 2, which is entitled Need versus Greed. I got that episode a little bit early, so I'll probably drop that right at midnight on Friday, so you can check it out right after you watch the episode. All right, guys, talk to you soon.